they're not doing what they promised to do. And I think it's fair for Canadians to say, are we getting value for the money we're giving to these companies?
The idea was that the parliamentary budget officer would kind of work like the congressional budget officer in the United States to report to the elected people.
Parliamentary Budget Officer Kevin Page has raised the ire of the very government that appointed him to independently scrutinize spending.
And with that, we're back again. Welcome. It's Radio Free Canada. It's so good to be with you. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in and being part of the conscious revolution while we bring you the news and information major news doesn't. And we started off with this. Check it out.
Federal Finance Minister Jim Flaherty is giving the work of Parliamentary Budget Officer Kevin Page a thumbs down. Flaherty says Page, whose 5-year term ends in March, hasn't lived up to his role as the federal watchdog. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Jacques Brabeau reports on the ongoing fight between Page and the government that hired him.
Page's work has been a constant thorn in the side of Finance Minister Jim Flaherty.
The idea was that the parliamentary budget officer would kind of work like the congressional budget officer in the United States to report to the elected people in the House of Commons about how the government was doing in its budgeting, sort of being a sounding board, a testing board. He's kind of gone off that course.
A criticism Page doesn't accept. With great respect to the Minister of Finance, there's no mention of sounding board in the Act of Parliament. We believe we have promoted fiscal transparency and have made financial analysis available to parliamentarians that was not provided by the government and public service. Page is about to leave his job, and the government says there could be more changes than just naming Page's successor.
Will you change the mandate?
I think we'll have a discussion about that. Personally, I would like to see a more defined mandate, yes.
Jacques Brabeau, Global News, Ottawa.
It is so good to have you here. We are recording. It is Friday, February the 8th, 2013, and the revolution is continuing. We are here for you.
Yes, we are part of the conscious awakening that is occurring all over the world to get this place into better shape than it is.
You know that we're going to be presenting you information to mock Stephen Harper abjectly today. Why? Well, because if we don't make fun, boy, things are going to happen because fascism is growing in Canada right now.
It certainly is. I mean, they're also being very opaque as opposed to transparent.
Yes, we had supposedly a transparent and accountable government coming up. It just wasn't. So we're going to focus on Flaherty, Page, and the budget as Radio Free Canada starts off with Mock Harper Friday, and a fantastic Friday at that. Let it rip.
On March 25th, in the not-so-distant future, Canada's first parliamentary budget officer, Kevin Page, will retire after 5 years on the job. And hats off to Stephen Harper for creating that position in the first place. But now that Page is leaving, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna miss the little guy. Not only because I believe he served his country well, but because by doing so, he drove so many cabinet ministers completely mad. I like that in a guy. In fact, if I had to write an eHarmony profile, that would be right up there with enjoys long walks on the beach and has a sense of humor. But he did his job. His job is to provide an independent analysis of this country's finances, which is important because if history has taught us anything, it's that governments, all governments, they tend to, what's the word I'm looking for here? They lie about this stuff. It was Page who first said, oh, hey, Canada, you know those fighter jets that the government wants to buy, and they say they're going to cost $16 billion? They're going to cost $30 billion plus. In response, the government launched an all-out character assassination on the guy. And it turns out Page was the one telling the truth. There's been no apology. On old age security, on deficit projections, on spending cuts, he's always done his job. And he's been called every name in the book, often by people who've never even read one. And now, his job is vacant, and the word is in Ottawa that there's not a single person in this country qualified for the job who's willing to do it. And it pays $160,000 a year. Nobody wants the job. Why? Look at the job description. Serve your country, tell the truth, get attacked by the government for doing so. Jim Flaherty once said famously, there's no such thing as a bad job in Canada. Well, if you trust the markets, looks like telling the truth in Ottawa qualifies.
And that's just about the best way to start things off, yes?
Well, you got to like a guy who just, drives conservatives crazy,
He does. Okay, I'm surprised he's not on a CIA watch list. Well, he probably is.
Or a
right?
CSIS watch list at the very least,
Welcome to the show today. This is Radio Free Canada, part of our regular broadcast. So if you're new to the show, remember we're out-of-the-box thinkers. This is not mainstream radio.
This is not even necessarily the news.
No.
At least not what they call the news.
No, and we don't wear uptight things, and we don't make commercials saying that you can trust us, because we want you to use your brain cells, use that noggin that you were given, and that intellect that is currently, propelling society into bright new places.
Actually, the people that say trust us are losing viewers.
Imagine that.
Gee, I wonder why.
Today, as we watch their ratings go down, and of course, excuses for managers to pay them less, we are going to bring you news and information talking about the way that transparency just is not occurring in the Canadian government.
You mean because Kevin Page was exposing the government's what's the word I'm looking for here?
Lies.
Lies? Oh, that could be it. Yes.
Oh, okay, yes. That's the word I was looking for. When I think of Harper, that's the thing I think about. Our opinion, of course, protected by certain things. Let's run this clip. Let's talk
Canada's
about
parliamentary budget officer says he's worried about Ottawa's lack of transparency. Kevin Page says Ottawa is blocking his efforts to scrutinize the nation's finances. The accusations come on the heels of another report that concludes Canada is lagging when it comes to government openness.
By raising red flags over the F-35 purchase, crime legislation and old age security, Parliamentary Budget Officer Kevin Page has raised the ire of the very government that appointed him to independently scrutinize spending.
I'd have to say, with great respect, I believe that from time to time and on occasion, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has overstepped its mandate.
Page's reports are often critical. No surprise, his latest probe of the cuts in Budget 2012 is getting a lot of pushback. Over 60 departments and agencies have refused to hand over information. The government denies parliamentarians are being kept in the dark.
In terms of specific information, we give information to all parliamentarians on a complete and timely basis. There are a number of means through which we do that, and we will continue to do so.
Canada ranks 51st on a world list of freedom of information, behind Angola, Colombia, and Niger. Page told the West Block with Tom Clark, while Canada's finances are in relatively good shape now, a lack of transparency could result in consequences in the future. And he'll do whatever he legally can to make sure the walls come down. Shirley Engle, Global News, Ottawa.
So that's the part that really gets my attention. We're 51st on a list of government transparency.
Yes.
We're behind Angola.
And, of course, he's saying that secrecy could hurt our economy.
But remember, bank profits is,
That's economy anyway.
That's the economy. Get informed about fractional reserve lending and those things. And real quick, I want to run this clip just to give the activists a little bit of ammunition.
In 2007, you started cutting taxes, and your corporate tax rate is 10 points lower than it is here in the U.S. Am I correct in that, sir?
I forget what the relevant American rate is, but I can tell you that our goal is to have a combined federal, provincial corporate tax rate of no more than 25%. We're on target to do that by 2012. We will have significantly, by a significant margin, the lowest corporate tax rates in the G7, and that's our government's objective.
Do you believe that's better for the economy than President Obama's plan to raise taxes on the wealthy and some businesses?
Well, I'm not going to be drawn in, Chris, as you can imagine, to commenting on American domestic policy.
Okay, so to make sure that you have the ammunition intellectually that you need, you pay 60% of your income, not your profit, in taxes. That's a Canadian citizen. But a corporation, their target is to make sure it's as low as 23% of their profit.
And he wants to make it the lowest in the G7.
And that's fascism, okay?
Well, isn't fascism the marriage between corporations and government?
Oh, well,
wow. Actually, that is what it is.
Yeah. Intellectually, the actual definition of fascism, when corporations and government are more important than people and their rights. And if we suffer because of this, it's fascism in action.
And corporations are doing very well under Mr. Harper.
Yes, very well under Mr. Harper. Let's run it.
The Canadian Labour Congress says generous corporate tax breaks are a gamble gone wrong. While most Canadians don't earn enough to pay off their taxes until June, Tax Freedom Day comes tomorrow for corporate Canada, thanks to a 15% tax rate, down drastically from 28% in 2000.
They're not doing what they promised to do, and I think it's fair for Canadians to say, are we getting value for the money we're giving to these companies?
Low corporate taxes are supposed to encourage investment. Instead, a CLC study found many big firms are hoarding cash and paying huge salaries and bonuses to their CEOs. Corporate cash reserves have ballooned from $187 billion to $575 billion. CEO compensation now averages $12 million. The CLC gave top prize for hoarding large cash reserves to Tech Resources with $4.4 billion, followed by Bombardier at $4.2 billion and Suncor with $3.8 billion. Tech Resources, Suncor, and Bombardier say cash is on hand for projects that will create jobs.
Even Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney has chided them for sitting on what he calls dead money. Money he says should be plowed back into the Canadian economy. Lisa.
Okay, Bob Fife in Ottawa tonight.
So we hope that you were taking out your notes and you were getting your notepad going. This is Radio Free Canada with the information you need.
15% tax rate, that's pretty important information.
So we think that our taxes should be lowered to 15% and maybe banks should start paying income tax. I don't know. This is Radio Free Canada. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
We've got more segments coming up. Stay tuned on YouTube, Facebook, and soon on Vimeo.
Since 1971, when President Nixon took the United States off what was left of the gold standard, the world has operated under a system of money called fiat. The dollar, the pound, the euro are all government fiat currencies. Fiat is a Latin word meaning let it be so. It is the law that this government currency be money. Indeed, without that legal enforcement, and the fact that we must pay taxes in this money, that dollar bill or that computer digit that represents a dollar would be pretty much meaningless. Only the government has the power to issue fiat money, but banks can create it through lending. If somebody wants to borrow $10, a bank can create it from nowhere and lend it. It can then charge interest. Banks also create money by lending against an asset, such as a house. They're given the deeds to the house, and they create the money out of nowhere and lend it, at interest, of course. But who benefits? Of course, those that have the power to issue money, governments and banks. They haven't had to do anything productive, they just create money. However money is created, be it through lending, fractional reserve banking, financial bailouts, or old-fashioned money printing, banks are always at or near the top of the money-issuing pyramid. In reality, this process of creating money only redistributes wealth from the bottom to the top of the pyramid. And thus that ever-increasing gulf between rich and poor gets bigger and bigger and bigger.